Figures on crime in London are based primarily on two sets of statistics: the Crime Survey for England and Wales and police recorded crime data. Greater London is generally served by three police forces. The Metropolitan Police, which is responsible for policing the vast majority of the capital. The City of London Police, which is responsible for the square mile of the City of London. And the British Transport Police, which polices the National Rail network and the London Underground. A fourth police force in London, the Ministry of Defence Police, do not generally become involved with policing the general public. London also has a number of small constabularies for policing parks. Within the Home Office crime statistic publications, Greater London is referred to as the London region. Rates of crime in London have been increasing in every reporting year since 2015-2016. Whereby London is currently experiencing an upsurge in serious violent crime, particularly among teenagers and young men. In figures released by the Office for National Statistics, crime in London was rising 5 times higher than the rest of the United Kingdom in 2019. London saw a 28% increase in killings involving the use of a blade, from 67 fatalities in 2018 to 86 in 2019. While knife crime in London fell for 3 years in a row, down from 14,159 in 2010-2011 to 9,680 in 2014-15. Under Boris Johnson's tenure as Mayor of London, his successor, Sadiq Khan, has presided over an increase in knife crime to 12,061 offences in 2016-17 and 14,695 in 2017-18. In February 2018, reported murders in London exceeded those in New York City for the first time. London recorded 45 murders during January through March 2018, whereas New York recorded 38. According to a London Assembly report, hate crime has also increased significantly in London since 2018. Over 19,000 hate crimes were recorded in the capital in 2018, with an average of more than 52 per day. Offences categorized as violent crime by the Home Office are violence against the person, including robbery and sexual offences. Sometimes includes kidnapping. It was announced in September 2018 that the city planned to emulate Scotland's public health approach, inspired by Cure Violence in Chicago, to violent crime. This saw the murder rate in Glasgow drop by more than a half between 2004 and 2017. In 2018, Sadiq Khan announced funding of £500,000 for a violence reduction unit, though this has been criticised as insufficient. Between 1990 and 2003, the number of homicides, i.e. murder, manslaughter, etc., in London averaged 120 per year, with a low of 109 in 1996 and a high of 204 in 2003. The number then fell in each and every year between 2004 and 2014 to a new low of 83. They then rose sharply to 118 in 2015 and 110 in 2016. In 2017 there was a further rise to 131. Although this included the combined 14 victims of the Westminster Bridge terrorist attacks. But even with these major events was still lower than any year between 1990 and 2009. As of the 31st of December 2018, there have been 132 homicides reported in London in 2018. The year 2019 was reportedly London's bloodiest year since more than a decade, which recorded a 11-year high of 143 people being killed. As of the 31st of December 2019, the number of homicides reported reached 149, the highest in a decade. Although the homicide rate in London has been increasing year on year since 2014, its homicide rate is still much lower than other cities like NYC and Toronto. Still, England is a relatively safe country by European standards, and exponentially safer than any North American country or city. Comparisons can be made to other world cities. Statistically, London is over 2.5x as safe as cities like NYC and Toronto. In terms of homicide, however, the general crime rate is much similar. The distribution of homicide offences in London can vary significantly by borough. Between 2000 and 2015 there were 2,326 offences committed in London. The murder rate increased 25.5% in between 2014 and 2015. The 2015 total was still lower than most recent years prior, and the increase came from a relatively low count in 2014. A noted trend since 2014 is robberies and assaults committed by individuals riding mopeds. Crime involving mopeds has gone up by more than 600% in London in the past 2 years. Assault with injury, currently comprising assault occasioning actual bodily harm and grievous bodily harm by the Metropolitan Police, accounts for on average 40% of all violence against the person offences within the Metropolitan Police area and 45% of all violence against the person nationally. In England and Wales, assault without injury and harassment account for a further 38% of crimes recorded within the violence against the person category. In 2008-09, there were 70,962 assault with injury offences in London with a rate of 9.5 per 1,000 residents. This was slightly higher than the total rate for England and Wales, which was 7.0 per 1,000 residents. Following the changes introduced